Welcome back after this short break. Now let's continue our journey of exploration and insight with our second panel discussion. I hope you are ready for another insightful session. It has already been a really fantastic day for all of us. Really great discussion, and the first panel discussion was amazing. Now let's continue the discussion, and the next panel is entitled as the Influencer Conquest, a passing fad or core marketing competence, and it is set to delve into the evolving roles of influencers in the marketing. We'll explore how brands and agencies can leverage influencer to maximize their reach and impact in today's dynamic market. So let me introduce you to the esteemed panelists for this particular discussion. Firstly, I would like to welcome Mr. Gaurav Barjatya, the marketing head at NDTV network. With over 17 years of expertise in marketing, Gaurav has a wealth of knowledge across brand management, digital marketing, and strategic communication. A very warm welcome, sir. Next, I would like to invite Nikita Nanda, Vice President at Adfactors PR. Nikita brings a strong background in business development and communications with expertise in marketing research and diverse growth strategies in both domestic and international markets. A very warm welcome. Thank you for joining us. Next, would like to invite Mili Kapoor, who is the marketing head at Philips India Personal Health. A very warm welcome, ma'am. Mili's diverse career spans major corporations like Nestle, PepsiCo, Disney, and Meta. Her expertise in digital marketing and consumer insights make her a valuable voice in this discussion. And now I would like to welcome the moderator of this session, Akansha Srivastava, who will be moderating this particular panel discussion. Akansha is the co-founder of BuzzinContent.com and the editor of BestMediaInfo.com. With her expertise, experience in content, marketing, and branded content, Akansha is well positioned to guide today's conversation. A very warm welcome to all the panelists and moderator. Now I leave on to Akansha. Please continue the discussion.
Hello. This is working. So as a session topic is influencer marketing a passing fad or a core marketing competence? I would begin that saying that it's definitely not a fad. I mean, if we just look around us in the last few months, Government of India conducted this National Creators Award, and then we saw our Indian influencers at Cannes Film Festival, and we're seeing them at World Cup, IPL, and all these big events. And most recently, how can we forget this festival? Also, the wedding, Anant and Radhika Ambani's wedding. We saw creators there as well. So it's definitely not a passing fad. So I would begin this conversation with Mili. So we know that influencer marketing, I mean, according to the reports, influencer marketing is going to be rupees 34 billion by 2026. So it's definitely big, and marketers are showing huge interest in it. So my question to you is that why do you think influencer marketing has become such a strategic pillar?
So thanks so much, and hello everyone. So you've said it aptly, and you've summarized it so well. Influencers, the whole influencer ecosystem is actually becoming very, very central to literally any brand, and especially to maybe all the brands I worked for in the last 7-8 years. The reason I feel that it's becoming so core to a brand or an activation strategy is, of course, a lot of people believe that influencers are about authenticity and credibility, etc. And that's even beyond the sponsored posts and all the tags that come with it. But I feel actually influencers can contribute a lot more to a brand. First things first, I look at influencers today as probably the celebrity endorsers of the yesteryears, right? So a consumer would probably know that a leading celebrity may not use a soap which is priced at whatever, 2 rupees or 5 rupees in those times. But those celebrity endorsers manage to grab eyeballs. And I think for me today, in a world where content is being just scrolled, an influencer is able to grab the kind of eyeball that is required. So that's definitely one. The second reason I feel influencers are becoming important is the malleability that they give to a brand that they work with. If I compare it to maybe a TV or an out of home, there are very limited options. But when it comes to an influencer, you can do anything from just getting them to share a post or actually curating content for you. You can do anything from a paid partnership to a barter partnership, right? The commercials are malleable, the way of working is malleable, and that flexibility allows for a lot more efficiency in a brand. And the third piece is to do with hyper-targeting. I have myself worked for 2 brands, one in pet nutrition and one in mother and child care, and both have required you to reach a few set of audiences, the right audiences, but drive conversions. And the right set of influencers have allowed me to do that. And I think it is for these 3 reasons that I feel influencer marketing can actually has the potential to be core to any brand as they build up, as they build their brand building, as they build their brand going forward. Loom is an excellent example. Boat is an excellent example. Lakme, which is a legacy brand, has now moved so much to social media and content. And their approaches are different, their ways of working are different. But they've really built or grown brands basis influencers. And all of this is a great testimony to how important influencers are today.
How important is influencer marketing at Philips?
Influencer marketing is very, very core to what we do here, especially because our brands are such that require awareness, engagement, and advocacy. And in working with influencers across the 3 parts of this funnel is really adding a lot of value to the brand. Of course, it all depends upon the choice of platforms, it depends upon the choice of influencers, it also depends upon the choice of content. But all of this coming together is really supporting us in our brand building efforts.
Nice. You know, I've got this vested interest in the growth of influencer marketing because I run this platform, Buzz in Content, which is all about branded content and influencer marketing. So I really see this, how I really like the way influencer marketing is really panning out in India. Mili, you mentioned about the importance authenticity influencer brings. And that brings me to the next question, which is for Nikita. So the whole point of doing influencer marketing in the beginning was about, because influencers bring authenticity, trust. But you know, consumers are not naive. They understand that they are being paid to endorse a product. So, and also probably last month I read a report which stated that trust in influencers is reducing among consumers. So in such a scenario, how should brands navigate this tricky terrain, maintaining authenticity and trust?
So Akansha, you rightly said, right? Consumers today are a very well-aware audience. It's extremely important, like as an agency, when we have a brand mandate, it's extremely important for us to study the personality of the brand and match it and try and marry it to the personality of the influencer that we're looking to target as well, right? If that is a mismatch, you've lost your audience. It's extremely, extremely important, you know, as communicators, as marketers, to sort of marry and influence both of them together. Only then do you really, really get the best out of a brand campaign. That is one. I think in the recent times, as an Indian brand, if I were to give an example, Mamaearth did a very interesting campaign called Plant Goodness, right? And the reason I'm quoting is because you asked about authenticity and trust. Now, what these guys did is that, of course, as an Indian brand, as a D2C brand, they stand for, you know, products that are non-harmful, that are parabens-free, sulfate-free, etc., right? Typically looking at young mothers, children, etc. So, and as a young mother myself, the only reason I continue to purchase, you know, in a very, very cluttered segment, that is, I got an email from them which said that, you know, if you were to use this, we would be happy to send you a product and plant a tree, right? And it was the Plant a Goodness campaign, right? And I made that purchase, and I continue to make that purchase, and they keep sending me pictures on how that tree is growing. right? And I was sold. I was sold of that idea, right? And I think to me, that resonated extremely well. It sort of, they got a repeat audience, right? There is this entire factor of me, I don't know, maybe at the surface level or otherwise, I just felt that the brand in its totality sort of seemed authentic with just the kind of marketing that they were doing, right? So extremely important, and as communicators, and this is essentially what I do, right? In terms of having to build and continue to cater to various brands that come to us. And usually what the challenge that we face as communicators is that there's a marketing rookie who would be sort of, commanding a lot of action and asking you that, we need these many followers, when we need this and we need that. It's very important for us to also educate the brand or the gatekeeper that what is the larger vision? What is it that you want to sort of, drive? And if that gets married well, I think we've hit the nail on the head.
You did give a very good example of authenticity of a brand, but do you have an example to give that how authentic? I mean, do you have an example of an influencer being really authentic and gaining consumers' trust?
I think most of the recent ones, I feel Harpreet Suri, Mom Wears Prada, is somebody that through her entire journey has sort of married the personality of a brand with her personality and her lifestyle really well. If you look at the kind of brand endorsements she does, of course there's a commercial value to it, like all influencers do, but I think her brand connect and the way she drives the narrative and does the storytelling is very compelling.
Okay. So, continuing from here only itself, Nikita mentioned that it's important to have, the influencer should match the brand's philosophy. Okay. So, I want to ask Gaurav that beyond engagement and reach, what all do you look at in influencers? I mean, what all should brands look in influencers before partnering them? I mean, do you look at the persona? Do you look at the vibe? Do you also see how they look at the world, what they put out in form of content? Because, any influencer can have good reach and engagement, but probably they are being part of conversations which is beyond social radar. So, how do you go about it?
What I always look at is how meaningful that engagement is, right? Why you're bringing that influencer or content creator into the fold needs to be very clear to the team, right? Whether it's for top of the funnel, middle funnel, bottom funnel, or in the earlier days you would talk about the typical IDA model. Why do you need them, right? Because as marketers, when you create FOMO, right, in the market, is this becoming a FOMO for the marketeers themselves, saying, "Mere plan mein influencer plan reh gaya ek." Does it become a tick mark? So as long as you're clear why you're associating with them, you'll have clarity on doing a back check, right? If it is a very fleeting activity, you'll say, "Okay, theek hai, I don't really, bother about other things." But if it is a meaningful engagement, then why wouldn't you do a complete check? Because at the end of the day, you're associating with somebody officially, unofficially, whatever you want to call it, right? They're endorsing you, right? And today people understand, while they continue to get influenced, and that's important for us to understand when we talk about whether it's a fad or it's just a thing to stay. As long as people are going to get influenced, influencers will stay, right? So if you were to do their Aadhaar check, right, you'll know some of them might be controversial, some of them might work for the brand, somebody is doing something else outside the purview of social media, etc., which you can't control, right? You'll take a calculated chance with that profile and say that, okay, I see a certain fitment and there is a certain content, a certain storytelling, a certain narrative that profile is bringing to my brand, right? Whether it's for a product, for a launch, for a service, for overall brand, and you would want to be very careful with that, right? And of course, it will change from brands to brands. considering we are in a very, very sensitive world right now, you can have enough and more backlash. I'm sure many people here working on different brands would have experienced all the boycotts and delete their app, etc., etc. You want to be careful with who you're associating. So I think it's very, very important as I see it. But yeah, I wouldn't say that as marketeers we are 100% stringent, because the reality is a lot of times your briefs are last moment, plans are last moment, execution is, pretty much weeks after when it had to happen. So you turn a blind eye towards a few things, which shouldn't be the case, to be honest.
It's easy to do if a brand is collaborating with 10 influencers, but there are certain campaigns where brands collaborate with thousands of influencers, and it gets difficult to do it then. So do any of you have an answer to this, that how to do this check when you are partnering with thousands of influencers for a campaign?
Sorry.
Please carry on.
It's a leap of faith, to be honest. When you're doing, and when it started, a lot of marketeers and partners used to talk about, you've got XYZ superstar who's coming on the brand to endorse. That's an endorser, right? This is just a social content. So it does not need agreements and checks and, do a mail exchange and it's all good. I think that world has changed a lot today. You might not be able to do checks for all the 1,000 and agreements of all the 1,000, etc. But at least you'll pick up the samples, right?
I think agencies' role come here, and probably influencer tech platforms' roles come here.
Absolutely, absolutely.
There are various influencer tech platforms that we use as well, which essentially marries the brand campaign, what the essence of the brand campaign is, with respect to what is the kind of category of influencers that we're looking to target. So, for example, if it's a brand campaign similar to what I spoke about Mama Earth, right? Are we looking at a category A media? Are we looking at Cat B influencer, etc.? What regions would be important? What is the profile of a certain individual if it's not relevant to somebody who's not a mother, for example, right? So there's a way, and there's tech and there's AI involved, in all of this as well. And there are various tools that most influencer tech platforms use now.
So now I would like to shift gears to some different topic of influencer marketing. So when we think of influencer marketing, the first thing that comes to our mind is Instagram. But my next question is to Mili. Let's go beyond Instagram and discuss the emerging platforms where India's creator economy is budding. So which other platforms do you see rising stars where brands can fully tap into the potential of creators?
Sure. So Akansha, when it comes to influencer marketing, I think Instagram is definitely something that comes to mind. But along with Instagram, there's also Facebook, Twitter, now X, and YouTube that really comes to our mind. But there is a world of influencer platforms outside of these as well. Let me give you an example, right? So as a marketer, I would first take a step back to really see what is it that I want to achieve out of my brand. What is my brand objective? I mean, Gaurav talked about it as well. He also touched upon the importance of what is it that I want to drive out of an influencer campaign. What is it that I want to drive out of an overall brand campaign that I want to do? And that really becomes the foundation stone of is YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and X good enough? Or do we need to go beyond? When it comes to, so say for example, I do work on a few Gen Z brands as well, Gen Z first brands. And for them, I believe Snapchat is coming up in a beautiful way to really reach out to the whole Gen Z audience, especially with all the improvements they're making in augmented reality and artificial intelligence. The experience is so engaging. Apart from that, when it comes to Gen Z, Discord is coming up in a big way on really driving communities and honest conversations, right? On the other hand, or the other end of the spectrum, if you're looking at if you're looking at a brand really going to the tier 2 cities or the heartland of India, ShareChat and Moj are really coming up in a big way. In fact, I know a content creator who told me that his ShareChat channel is on YouTube, ShareChat channel is actually as big as his Facebook channel. So that's how big ShareChat is becoming when it really comes to the tier 2, tier 1, tier 2 and beyond. But that's video platforms. Then let me talk about the text-heavy platforms, right? And there is a huge emergence of those coming in. There is Quora, there is Reddit, and all of these are moderator-led, honest conversations, honest reviews on brands, on products. They are also investing a lot in bringing influencers together and driving collaborations. And I believe as a brand, these are also places that we really look at to be able to drive that level of authenticity and credibility. And then, of course, there are super specialist platforms like a TripAdvisor. So if there's a brand that really wants to target a traveler or a lifestyle audience, TripAdvisor is a great way in which influencers are writing a lot of blogs and people are following them. So I believe that there is a whole world out there beyond, beyond the big four, as we could call it. There is a big world out there. But again, it is important to really develop a good mix by looking at what is it that you want to drive out of your brand, and then probably looking at how can you leverage an ecosystem of, say, 3 or more such platforms to develop your influencers into actual evangelists or advocates for your brand. And that is where the magic really happens, if you ask me.
You have summarized all the platforms available for influencer marketing. Okay. So in my career as a journalist, I've done a lot of stories around agency-client relationships. I mean, probably over 50. इतना भी बड़ा career नहीं रहा है मेरा, but again, probably over 50 stories I might have done on agency-client relationships and why should it be long-term. So many stories on project basis, AOR basis relationships. I think we should also start talking about long-term relationships between influencers and agencies. Brands, my bad. Influencers and brands. We should also start talking about, while I've seen certain brands like Olay, L'Oreal having long-term partnerships with their influencers, it's still at a nascent stage. So my question is to Nikita, that why is it important to have long-term relationship with influencers? And what are the barriers preventing brands to do that? And additionally, if brands decide to do that, then what are the things that they should keep in mind to actually have a long-term relationship with an influencer? Probably you can use this mic.
Thank you. So since you mentioned L'Oreal and L'Oreal being, such a legacy brand themselves, interestingly, they have a very good campaign called Shades of You, which has been running for a while now. And essentially what that does is that they have broken with that one campaign, which is sort of like a continuous campaign, and they keep on winning various awards because they've addressed inclusivity. They have addressed everyone from the Gen Z audience to millennials to, that entire peer set that they wish to influence, right? Who sort of right from teenagers to people across all major walks of life, geographies, ethnicities, etc. And they address topics which are very, very personal to lifestyle changes, habits, everything from sleep disorders to how your skin changes, sun damage to, perimenopause to menopause, all of that, right? And it's so interesting because it's sort of become like this entire community of, women crowning each other with facts and data and things they should be doing and, homemade remedies and all of that. So I think a lot of brands are doing it. There are some very, very interesting young age brands who've broken down clutters, and L'Oreal, of course, has plenty marketing budgets, etc. So probably, a very different animal. But recently, I attended this event recently last week, and I came across this campaign, which was this very interesting, and I'll take 2 minutes because this is a very engaged audience, so just to sort of indulge you all. There's an Australian premium bikini brand called Triangle, right? And very fresh, very new, and they wanted to enter the US market. And as most startup brands, they had zero budgets. They had no marketing dollars. They did not want to invest a lot of marketing dollars, but they were very clear that we want to enter the US market, right? And their marketing team, which is essentially a bunch of 4 people, what they did was, I thought was phenomenal, right? What they did was, they understood that, who are the top 5 people in US who have the maximum mind share with respect to influencers. So one gentleman came up with this idea that, dude, I love Kendall Jenner, it's Kendall Jenner for me, right? So they started Googling and they started stalking Kendall, right? When they started stalking her, they did not reach out to Kendall because obviously that involved a lot of marketing dollars, right? They started stalking and they made a list of all her friends, her business associates, all the people that she had selfies with, etc., who were not of a very big or very prominent sort of celebrity status as herself, right? And they reached out to them, and they sent out these bikini sort of hampers with these, organically to the US market. As time went by, only about 6 months or so, she was surrounded by all of her friends and peer group wearing wearing triangle bikinis, right? And she was very interested, and she reached out to the brand, and she said that, can I get a bite of what you guys are doing? All of my friends, she sent a picture, all of my friends are doing this, can you send me a sample? And rest is history, right? And after that, there was no looking back. Everybody wanted to collaborate with them. All micro, nano influencers wanted to collaborate with them. So I think that to me is absolute win-win. What they did was that they thought out of the box, zero marketing dollars spent, which is an absolute delight to any marketer. So I think they hit the nail on the head. So I think if more and more brands and marketing teams can think out of the box and not the mundane and the ordinary that, okay, it's a topical campaign, Diwali hai to ye karna hai, Mother's Day hai to ye karna hai. So I think that really helps in navigating this entire landscape.
I really like these conversations where my panelists actually give examples, good examples of brands. And I like them even more when they don't give their own examples, probably some really good use cases outside there. And something new that I heard of. Thank you, Nikita, for doing that. Okay. So, there's no event complete without where we talk about dealing with reducing consumer attention. In ads, probably. We always talk about that. But over here, I'm going to talk about losing audience attention in influencer marketing. So I will throw this question to Gaurav. Even on a Saturday, Sunday when I get time, the moment I open my Instagram and I see the people that I follow, the influencers that I follow, and when I see them promoting some brand, I just skip that content because I know that it's done for a brand. Until unless it initially doesn't look like a branded content, I do watch it. But in such a scenario, how can brands use influencers and keep audience engaged in that content? What is the key to it?
Only if somebody knew the answer, to be honest. See, you don't want the content to be so branded that the consumer says, okay, get lost. At the same time, when something becomes too subtle, you don't want to hear from your team saying, "Isme paisa lagaya wo hai kahan?" Matlab, where is the brand? So it's a very difficult decision to make in terms of, how measured you are. At the same time, a lot of brands try and control the narrative of that content. That does not work necessarily for the audience of that influencer. And that's a conversation I've seen happen like tens of times where the influencer would say, but this is not my audience, this is not my content. You're asking me to do it, but my engagement will drop, etc. But the brand will still say, but ye to karna padega, So there's no right or wrong answer. You have to understand where you're sort of integrating. What is it, a content which is entertainment, which is light-hearted, or a content that is sort of serious in nature, that requires like a demo, explanation, that requires some sort of mindset change. So it really depends on how strongly or how subtly you bring the brand in that narrative. Again, I've been on many such campaigns, and I wouldn't say that I've been right all the time. I've gone ahead and said, it does not matter, the brand has to be visible from the first frame. And I've also been on the side where saying, pura content khatam hone ke baad, if the logo just comes in subtly at the bottom somewhere, it's fine. So, it really depends on the campaign, depends on how sensitive that content is, who's the influencer, who's the target audience, and how quickly you think that they'll move on, right? People also don't have attention anymore. That's how you started, right? There's an attention deficit, and that's why brands are going to influencers in the first place. Because long form will work for certain categories, short form works for certain categories. So it really depends on how much of attention you want to bring in. And even in the branded advertising, pure advertising side, like YouTube's been, or the Google team's been talking to advertisers for last 10 years saying that, you have to bring in your message in the very first few seconds, otherwise, skip and you're done, right? So it's not only the influencer piece that's, brands or marketers look in isolation. They get different messaging from different platforms, and at the end of the day, they're also trying to make a sense of all of that, right? Because when we talk about influencer, most of the time we just think a vertical screen and, swipe up and it goes. But today, who's an influencer? Who's a content creator? Who's a celebrity? I mean, nobody has a clear answer, right? You lean on somebody for a voice, essentially, that is not yours. And that for me is the last peel of that onion. The moment you try and chapo your brand behind somebody's back saying endorsed by XYZ brand, you've lost the voice, or either you've called out that it's technically my voice only being delivered to you through somebody. So there's no right or wrong answer. It's a judgment call that you have to take depending on the campaign.
On Buzzin content, I've published over 3 lakh pieces on branded content, and probably out of those, 50,000 must be on influencer marketing. One thing that has stood out for me, because I've been observing what's happening in India in the branded content space, is that till the time the brand is the enabler of the story, that works. Chahe aap logo dikhao ya na dikhao, till the time brand is an enabler of the story, because of the brand, the story is moving forward. That's the best example of branded content. And the larger umbrella is content marketing. So branded content bhi aata hai, influencer marketing bhi aata hai. And then of course there's a lot of educative content which people call content marketing as well. So brand has to be the enabler of the story, I think.
Correct, but there's just one point I'll add there. When you say branded content, people consume content.
Mm-hmm.
It's, by the way, branded is how I think consumer would like to see it, and not in that pecking order of branded and you also get our content, right? That is where I think if you get the order right, I think you'll sail through. And when you talk about storytelling, see, I've spent a lot of time in media and entertainment. I've been with Star, I've been with WWE, now with NDTV, and these are different formats of content, right? Eventually, at the heart of it, from a brand point of view or from media and entertainment point of view, it is storytelling. That is what captures the attention, right? When Apple tells somebody that, here's a product, it's not for you, it's for the crazy ones, right? There's a story. Otherwise, they can say, best phone ever, buy at this rate, available at
People
a
will
stop.
still buy Apple.
I'm not sure if it would have done the same magic, because you want to belong to that club, right, of crazies. That's how you want to see yourself. You're buying into that story, right? And we've all grown up. You talk of the cultural references from where marketing stems, right? Everybody's grown up hearing stories from dada dadis, nana nanis, from parents, right? That's how, I mean, it's not only Indian culture, that's how the world is. And stories will capture somebody's imagination, far more than just facts and figures. We've done storytelling even on the best of Excel sheets in the boardrooms, right? Which shouldn't need storytelling, but that's how it is. So if you keep that at the heart and develop your content from there, and by the way, it's branded. I think that's the way I see is the best way to go.
Because we're talking about influencer marketing, we can't not have a discussion on social commerce. So my next question is to Mili. E-commerce has disrupted the way social media platforms and Google were earning money. And now there is social commerce, so across platforms, not just on e-commerce, but across platforms. Even D2C channels pay brands, I see they do their own social commerce using influencers. So what challenges come with leveraging influencers for commerce? Additionally, how can brands ensure more conversions through social commerce?
So let me just answer your question in two parts. Firstly, you've absolutely hit the nail on the head when you say that social commerce has completely disrupted the world of e-commerce. I was reading a report where it said social commerce is expected to grow by more than 30% over the next 5 years. And that's a clear testimony that it's booming like how. I mean, right now, as we scroll and as we see influencer content on any of the platforms, there is a call to action that allows you to complete a shopper journey, right? And that's the beauty of social commerce. It is actually moving a consumer from intent to discovery. So you're discovering brands, you're engaging with brands, you're getting information about brands, and hence you're exploring. That creates desire, and then the desire is converted into an absolute shopper journey, which is beautifully seamless, and it gives the consumer an elevated experience, which means higher conversions for the brand because the consumer is happy, right? So if I talk about social commerce, it's actually taken over so beautifully, whether it is on a social network platform, in the form of content and the way I just explained, or it is in the form of just embedding influencer videos on a D2C website or an e-commerce website. I think some of the but I think with every growth comes clutter. And I think that is the first challenge that a lot of brands would face, which is how would a brand now stand out in a clutter where there are so many influencers shouting out about different brands on a platform, right? And Gaurav has also summed it beautifully on how do you really talk about, say, its content, and then there is a brand, and you need to keep storytelling at the helm of everything. I would love to add on that to say that the first and the best way to actually overcome this challenge of clutter is to keep your message super sharp and to be able to deliver that message or benefit within the first 5 seconds. And I'm being very liberal when I say
very
5
difficult
seconds. It is the biggest challenge that I see brands would be facing. The second big challenge that I would also say is probably something that is not so much for brands to solve for, but more social platforms to solve for, which is privacy. Because now the social commerce journey is getting integrated with a payment gateway. So how do we really solve for privacy? And that's something for social platforms, not just to do at their back end, but also to communicate to consumers, so consumers have the trust and the confidence through their shopper journey that our data is being kept private unless we opt in for it. So I think these are the two big challenges that I actually see. How do we overcome challenges to drive conversions? I would say the answer to that rests in the triangle of advantage on where is it that your content is placed, allied categories, the right platforms, targeting the right people on social media. So that's one leg of the triangle. How is it that your storytelling is going through? And the whole assurance of privacy. And if this virtuous triangle of advantage can be measured, it just spins into a flywheel that will allow social commerce to grow by leaps and bounds, and brands to grow by leaps and bounds on social commerce as well.
Social commerce should be another topic here to discuss. I was enjoying this conversation so much that the MC just came and told me that I have to wrap it up quickly. So I'll just finish it up with two last questions, one for Nikita and one for Gaurav. I will read this question because I took a lot of time in making this. Probably my audience might feel that what was so big deal about this question, but I will read it. As influencer marketing becomes increasingly programmatic, navigating the intertwining legal frameworks and ethical standards can be challenging. It's crucial to tread carefully on this sensitive terrain. Can you share the best practices you recommend for insurance compliance, and how do you guide the brands you work with through these complexities? And this question I would like to ask to Nikita.
So the honest answer is that it's still a very, very gray area, right? Most agencies practice it. Larger ones practice it. Some of the larger firms who are more credible in nature practice it. And, we have our bolts and checks in place. There's your usual compliance with respect to ASCI and Consumer Protection Act and your terms and conditions. And we do regular trainings and all of that. But there's a huge chunk of audience. There's a huge chunk of very young brands and marketers who are constantly dealing and abusing this, right? Which continues to remain a challenge, and which I think everyone at large is grappling with, and so is the government now, because these guys are making huge amounts of money as well, right? But I think with compliance comes trust. And as marketers, it's very, very important, like I said, right, for us to also get up and say no to a lot of things that are dished out to us in terms of brand mandates and in terms of, this is the following and this is who we need and all of that, right? It's extremely important for us to be responsible enough ourselves to educate these guys in terms of what is it that the brand truly needs, what is it the personality truly needs from a brand perspective, and then go ahead with it. So I think that becomes extremely important.
Okay. My last question to Gaurav. Very different question, but I'm seeing this new league of LinkedIn influencers. And my question to you is that why shouldn't we overlook them? Why shouldn't we overlook them? Why are they so important now?
See, if your audience is there, you've got to be there as a brand. Influencers is just a way to get to them. And it's not that these people are not there on Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat or whatever, right? But it's a different environment. So in that environment, in a certain context and a different storytelling, when you reach out to them, if at all they are your audience, then of course, it creates a different impact. The only difference is that the profile of the influencers would change, right? It could be a voice from the industry. It could be, and again, depends on why you want to do it in the first place. So tomorrow I can, if I've got a campaign, I can reach out to Mili, I can reach out to Nikita saying, can you say that, hey, fantastic campaign, and post it out, right? I don't know if they would. But when it goes out from another voice, okay, then again, it's a community that is, seeing your work in a certain professional environment. So, if you're a brand that reaches out to B2B, then that's definitely a place you would want to be. Or even if you are B2C and your clientele is a certain upwardly mobile audience, then you would want to be there.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening to this. And I hope we have takeaways so that we end up creating certain viral content just like Radhika and Anand's Shadi.
Also, I'd like to request my lovely audience, if you have some questions in your mind, please raise your hands. You have 2 questions, but we'll give chance to that guy first. Yeah? Okay. The man in the Nehru jacket.
From the beginning, when you started talking about influencers, I had this one very curious question. A recent case of influencers gone wrong is the Cannes Film Festival. People were there, they reached tier 2, tier 3 cities because they had influencers from those places. So it reached a lot of audience. People who didn't know about Cannes were also looking at Cannes because of the influencers who were casted. But then the true meaning of Cannes was lost. It became another Met Gala, which was not the right meaning, because the idea was to promote films, to promote good directors, good stories, but we eventually promoted good clothes and people looking smart. And that was all that was happening. So what do you think about this, and where do you think brands should draw the line? They should know when to stop and who to influence. So what do you think about this?
So I think it all goes back to the basics. As in, and for me, before doing anything, whether it's the Met Gala or whether it's sending my brand to the Ambani wedding or whether it is anywhere, I think it all goes back to the basics. And the basics are, what is it that who is your consumer? Where is your consumer? What do you want your brand to stand for? And what is that part of the marketing funnel that you want to activate? If we look at, say, the Nancy Tyagi into the Carrot Lane example, and in hindsight, if I was to retrofit what they wanted to do, perhaps what they really wanted to do was to establish, and I don't have the answer, this is just the way I would analyze the situation, is probably to tell a lady in a tier 2 city that Carrot Lane is also for her, and she can get on the platform and own a beautiful piece of jewelry, which otherwise she would think she may not be able to. And this is just my conjecture. Maybe that is what they wanted to derive out of it, and for all you know, they were able to achieve what it did to the brand. Of course, in the whole process, the concept of cans got lost. But is that really something for Carrot Lane to solve for? I'm not sure, right? So I think for me, how do you really balance out what you want to do with and do it right? I think it all just goes down to identifying and sharpening your objective and making sure that objective stays consistent through every part of an influencer campaign journey, from concept to from briefing to concept, to choice of influencers, to choice of platforms, to choice of outreach, and then of course the budgeting and the post eval. So for me, it all just comes down to what is it that you want to do as a brand.
Thank you.
Also now I'll request Nitin sir to please ask questions. You were coming up with 2 questions. Okay. We'll just quickly go ahead. Firstly, I'd like to thank all our moderator and all the panelists. Thank you so very much.